Most men aren't tired. They're mentally undisciplined. Read that again, because this sentence alone disqualifies 90% of men. You think exhaustion is the enemy. It's not. The real enemy is a mind that has never been trained to obey. You wake up already defeated, not because life is hard, but because your mind wakes up uncontrolled. You don't need rest. You need command. Because disciplined men don't ask how they feel. They decide what they do. And that difference, that's the line between men who build and men who explain. Look closely at modern men. They call it stress. They call it burnout. They call it mental health. But strip the language away, and what's left is simple. They've never mastered themselves. You're not overwhelmed by work. You're overwhelmed by choice. Too many options. Too much comfort. Zero control. Your ancestors woke up with danger. You wake up with notifications. And your nervous system can't tell the difference anymore. So it panics. It escapes. It shuts down. And you call that being tired. No. You're mentally soft from overconsumption. You delay simple tasks. You overthink easy decisions. You need music, coffee, motivation, and hype just to start. That's not complexity. That's weakness disguised as personality. A disciplined mind doesn't negotiate. It executes. But your mind, it bargains. Just 10 more minutes. One more scroll. I'll start tomorrow. And tomorrow never comes. Because your mind learned one thing very early. You don't mean what you say. Comfort didn't kill men violently. It killed them quietly. Soft beds, soft food, soft entertainment, soft opinions. Everything designed to remove friction. But friction is where strength is built. So when real pressure arrives, your mind collapses. You don't rise to the challenge. You retreat to distraction. Porn, social media, junk food, endless noise. You're not relaxing. You're sedating yourself. And every time you do that, you teach your brain. Escape is allowed. Ever notice this? You rest, but still feel tired. You sleep, but wake up foggy. You take breaks, but feel worse after. That's because rest without discipline doesn't recharge. It rots. Your mind is exhausted because it's never focused, always jumping, always reacting, never directing. A mind without structure becomes chaotic, and chaos feels like fatigue, not because you've done too much, but because you've done nothing meaningful. Mental fatigue is not real fatigue. Real fatigue comes from effort, from pressure, from pushing limits. Mental fatigue comes from avoidance, from constantly deciding not to decide. Your brain burns energy when it resists discomfort. So the more you avoid hard things, the more tired you feel. That's the paradox weak men never understand. Here's the truth most men hate. You don't lack motivation. You lack authority over yourself. You let your emotions decide your actions. You let moods dictate discipline, and moods are unstable. That's why your life feels unstable. Strong men don't feel more motivated. They feel less. They operate on rules, systems, non-negotiables, while you operate on feelings. And feelings change every hour, because fixing this is boring. There's no applause, no instant reward, no dopamine hit, just repetition, silence, resistance. And weak men can't survive silence. Silence forces self-confrontation. No phone, no noise, no escape. Just you and the man you've been avoiding. So you stay distracted. busy, tired, because tired is safer than disciplined. The lie of, I'm trying. Trying is the language of undisciplined men. Disciplined men don't try. They do. Trying leaves room for excuses. Doing removes options. Every time you say, I'll try, your brain hears, this is optional. And optional things don't happen. Mental undiscipline doesn't just slow you down. It destroys identity. You stop trusting yourself. You stop believing your own words. You become the man who promises and never delivers. And that quiet self-betrayal, that's what eats you alive at night. Not failure, but knowing you didn't even give yourself a real chance. Not to motivate you. Motivation is cheap. This is a mirror. And most men will look away. Because discipline requires one thing modern men hate: responsibility. No blaming childhood. No blaming society. No blaming algorithms. Just ownership. Control is not talent. It's trained. And the moment you stop letting your mind run wild, everything changes. But only if you're willing to suffer boredom. Only if you're willing to do what feels dull, heavy, and thankless. That's where real men are built. Motivation is emotional, and emotions are unreliable. That's why weak men wait to feel ready. Strong men move while feeling nothing. Discipline is mechanical. You don't wake up inspired. You wake up decided. You don't negotiate with your mind. You give it orders. Because the moment you start asking, your mind starts resisting. Self-mastery begins the day you stop listening to yourself. Your mind respects one thing: consistency. Not confidence. Not affirmations. Not hype. Consistency builds authority. Every time you do what you said you would, even when you don't feel like it, your brain learns this voice is serious. And slowly, resistance fades. But every time you quit, you lose rank inside your own head. That's why most men feel weak. They've been disobeying themselves for years. Not during motivation. Not during pain. Control is built when nothing is happening. When there's no pressure, no urgency, no consequences. That's where discipline is tested. Can you train when it's quiet? Can you work without fear? Can you sit alone without reaching for stimulation? Most men can't. They need chaos to feel alive. Controlled men don't. They generate pressure on demand. Self-mastery requires rules that don't change, not goals. Rules. Goals are optional. Rules are law. Examples. You train even if it's minimal. You wake up at the same time, no exceptions. You finish what you start, no excuses. You don't consume before you create. No emotion involved. No mood checks. Rules don't care how you feel. Weak men keep adding hacks. Strong men remove distractions. Control doesn't come from doing more. It comes from less. Less noise. Less stimulation. Less consumption. Every app you remove increases focus. Every habit you cut increases clarity. Your mind is not tired. It's overloaded. Strip it down. Undisciplined men chase instant relief. Disciplined men delay satisfaction. That's the real divide. Train before pleasure. Work before reward. Silence before noise. Every time you delay reward, you strengthen self-control. It's about suffering. It's about dominance over impulse. Discomfort is not danger. Your mind treats it like one. So you must retrain it. Cold showers. Hard workouts. Silence. Boredom. These are not rituals. They are. Discomfort teaches your brain one message: we don't escape. And that single lesson changes everything. You can't think your way into control. Control is embodied. If your body is weak, your mind will negotiate. Strong posture, controlled breathing, deliberate movement. How you sit, walk, breathe, that's discipline in physical form. The body leads. The mind follows. Most men aren't undisciplined in action. They're undisciplined in reaction. They react emotionally, impulsively, defensively. Controlled men pause. They don't respond immediately. They don't explain themselves. They don't react to disrespect. Silence is a weapon. The man who controls reaction controls the situation. The hardest part, no one notices. Discipline doesn't get applause. No likes, no praise, no validation. That's why most men quit. They want results without identity change. But discipline is invisible until it isn't. By the time people notice, it's already too late. Not confidence, not excitement. Stillness, a quiet mind, a steady body, clear direction, no urgency, no chaos, just forward motion. Discipline changes behavior first, but eventually it changes identity. And once identity shifts, control becomes natural. That's where most men never reach. Discipline changes who you are. At first, discipline feels forced, unnatural, heavy, because you're acting against your old identity. Your mind says, "This isn't me," and it's right. That version of you was built on impulse, comfort, and reaction. But discipline doesn't ask for permission. It replaces identity through repetition. You don't become disciplined by thinking differently. You become disciplined by behaving differently long enough. Identity follows behavior, always. Every disciplined man goes through this phase, a quiet discomfort. You stop doing what used to numb you. Scrolling feels empty. Noise feels irritating. People feel distracting. And for a moment, you feel lost. That's not weakness. That's withdrawal. Your old identity is dying. Most men panic here. They run back to stimulation. Controlled men stay. They let the old self suffocate. Why discipline feels lonely? Because weak men need mirrors. Strong men don't. As you gain control, you stop relating to most people. They complain. You adjust. They seek motivation. You execute. They talk about goals. You live by rules, and the gap grows. Discipline isolates before it elevates. The loneliness is the cost of self-mastery. Pay it. They don't rush. They don't explain. They don't overshare. They observe. They listen more than they speak. They respond slowly. They choose words carefully. Because a controlled mind doesn't leak energy. Every movement is deliberate. That's why presence alone creates pressure. Anyone can lift weights. Anyone can grind. But very few men can remain calm under disrespect, under boredom, under uncertainty. That's elite control. Your emotions are not enemies. They are signals. Controlled men feel everything, but act on almost nothing. The need to be seen dies. No posting for approval. No explaining your process. No seeking recognition. Why? Because discipline builds internal certainty. You know who you are. You don't need confirmation. That silence confuses people. They can't read you. They can't predict you. That's power. Time becomes different. Undisciplined men kill time. Disciplined men use it. You stop escaping boredom. You weaponize it. While others distract themselves, you sharpen. While others waste nights, you build mornings. Time stops slipping. It starts compounding. There's a moment, quiet, unannounced, where discipline stops feeling like effort. It becomes default. You no longer debate training. You no longer negotiate work. You no longer fight impulses. They don't appear as strongly anymore. Because the brain learned, this man does not fold. That's the turning point. Most men never reach it. Not confidence, not arrogance, gravity. People feel it before they understand it. You don't dominate rooms by talking. You dominate by presence. Because your energy is contained. No leaks, no chaos. Just control. You are no longer the man who reacts. You are the man who decides. You don't chase intensity. You operate in stillness. You don't look for motivation. You run on standards. You don't need to prove anything. You are already disciplined. And that makes you dangerous. Discipline doesn't make life easier. It makes you stronger. And once you taste control, there's no going back. Only one thing remains: the decision. Most men will hear this and feel attacked. That's how you know it's true. Because discipline doesn't comfort you. It exposes you. It shows you every promise you broke, every standard you lowered, every time you chose ease over effort. And instead of fixing it, most men defend themselves. They explain. They justify. They intellectualize weakness. That's the first sign of mental undiscipline. Here's the truth no one wants to say out loud. You don't lack time. You don't lack energy. You don't lack opportunity. You lack control. Control over what you do when no one is watching. Control over what you consume. Control over what thoughts you allow to stay. And without control, everything else is useless. Talent without control is wasted potential. Strength without control is reckless. Intelligence without control becomes self-sabotage. That's why you've seen men with less ability surpass you. They weren't better. They were disciplined. Let this sink in. Every habit you repeat is training something. When you hit snooze, you train avoidance. When you scroll, you train distraction. When you quit, you train escape. Your brain doesn't care about intentions. It learns from actions. So ask yourself honestly, what have you been training? Most men don't destroy their lives dramatically. They dissolve them slowly. A little laziness, a little indulgence, a little procrastination, until one day they wake up older, heavier, weaker, and realize the gap is too big to ignore. That regret, that's undisciplined time coming back to collect interest. You think discipline is harsh. It's not. Regret is harsh. Waking up knowing you could have been more, but chose comfort instead. That's punishment. Discipline doesn't ask for your feelings. It demands your obedience. And obedience to self is the highest form of freedom. Because the man who controls himself cannot be controlled by the world. Let's be clear about something uncomfortable. No one is impressed by your struggle. No one cares how hard it feels. No one is coming to save you. The world only responds to results. Quietly, brutally, without apology. That's why disciplined men don't complain. They adjust. They don't need external pressure. They create internal standards. Standards so firm that excuses can't survive near them. Understand this. If your life feels chaotic, your mind is undisciplined. If your future feels unclear, your daily actions are weak. If you feel tired all the time, you've been running from effort, not doing it. Here is the moment of decision. Not tomorrow, not a next week. Now, you don't need a full plan. You don't need clarity. You need movement. Do the hard thing first. Remove one distraction. Finish one task completely, and then repeat. That's how control is built. Discipline is not dramatic. It's quiet, unseen, relentless. No music, no speech, no validation, just execution. Most men won't choose this path because it's lonely, because it's boring, because it removes excuses, and excuses are comfortable. But if you choose discipline, really choose it, your life will start to narrow. Fewer distractions, fewer people, fewer words, and more power. You will stop explaining yourself, stop seeking approval, stop reacting emotionally because you don't need to. You're too busy becoming dangerous. Let others talk about motivation. Let others chase intensity. Let others complain about life being unfair. You'll be building something they can't understand. Control. This is not a challenge, not a trend, not a phase. This is a line in the sand. Either you command your mind, or it will command you for the rest of your life. Most men will forget this message. A few will feel uncomfortable, scroll away, and a very small number will sit in silence after this ends and start. No announcement, no noise, just action. If you're still listening, you already know which one you are. No control is the slowest, quietest way to disappear. Choose discipline or accept weakness.